Episode 70, Growing Our Commitment to STEM. You may have noticed that things have slowed down a little bit at STEM Southwest podcast. We're not at our regular release rate, and it's not because there's not plenty of content. There is so much happening right now. Our heads are kind of spinning. But you'll find out in this episode what's going on with Bob and I's life, personally and professionally, that has impacted the release of the podcast. And know that as soon as we can, we'll be back to our regular schedule. But for now, we're just promising to bring you great content as often as we possibly can. Enjoy this episode of our podcast, Recommitment to STEM.
When people tell me they can't find a job or they need to take this route to get a job, they're not looking at the full landscape of this state.
We need to get involved.
Welcome, fellow STEM enthusiasts, to the STEM Southwest podcast, your source for all things science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. This podcast is designed to create STEM connections, cohesion, and elevation. This is a place where STEM enthusiasts gather to learn about some amazing STEM rock stars and activities of the Southwest and beyond that are impacting the world. If you have longed to be united with your fellow STEM nerds, then you've found your people here at STEM Southwest. And now, here are your hosts, Bob and Shelly.
Hey everyone, this is Bob.
And I'm Shelly.
Together we are
STEM Southwest. Hey Bob, we are off on another episode. It's kind of been a journey, and we've had a few exciting things happening in our world that we thought we'd share with our audience rather than bring in our traditional guest.
True that.
And so today's episode is going to be kind of a compilation, kind of a little smorgasbord of STEM, right?
Yeah, and I wanted to share a couple things. This week I was doing some research on STEM here in the Southwest, and I came upon two specific items. They're a little dated, but I think they really speak to the reality of STEM in the Southwest and in New Mexico. So the first one, there was a report in 2020 about the state of STEM in New Mexico, and it talked about that 50% of the STEM workforce here in the state do not have bachelor's degrees. And I think there's this mindset, certainly our generation we grew up with, is that you had to go to college to get a job, your dream job. You could not go in there with a high school degree and expect to move into anything. And so it's interesting. And the other statistics from that report, it said 56% of the jobs in the state are dependent on STEM. So when people tell me they can't find a job or they need to take this route to get a job, they're not looking at the full landscape of this state. And I would imagine throughout the Southwest. So I think that's an important statistic. These statistics, you should keep those in mind, as particularly the young people, as you're considering careers to pursue. There is more than enough opportunity in this state alone.
Right, let alone the region, right?
Yes.
And the nation and the world, honestly. It's a national, worldwide crises. And so I think that's really important.
Crises.
Absolutely. STEM crises. Remember back like 4 years ago, we had a meeting with a couple of folks and we gathered around, and that was one of the things we talked about, like what could we do to stem the STEM crises, the workforce crises. And so I want to step back for just a minute, because it's interesting what you said about generational expectations about education and preparation for the workforce. And just last week, I met with one of our community leaders here, and he and I got into a bit of a heated back and forth.
Really?
Yes, I didn't share this with
you.
you.
No, you did not. I want to know about that.
I had forgotten about it until you just brought this up, but he is adamant that every student needs to get a 4-year degree. And if our listeners have been listening very long, they know that as a career advisor, that I do not agree with that. Like, I think that that's the right thing for some young people. But I think that, and it shows those stats that you just rattled off, right? 50% of the jobs in STEM do not require a bachelor's degree. And so, and that's not just like minimum wage opportunities, right? We have students that are in jobs. I think about like Derek, in a job where he's earning $30 an hour without even an associate's degree, right? He had the right kind of training and we helped him with that. And so I just think that that's really interesting. But him and I went back and forth, and I know you want to ask me.
Well, no. I would say I would never discount the value of a four-year degree or master's or PhD, but not everyone has to follow the same track.
Absolutely. But he was adamant about that. I finally just dropped it and walked away and thought, I'm not sure that our program and what we have to offer will necessarily be able to partner and work together with what they're offering, because they really do have a strong, and I would say that this is a service group has a lot of members that are definitely older than we are. And so it is kind of, I know, right? A friend of mine this morning just said, she was telling me about these young girls, and I kept listening and I thought, what? I mean, this friend, she's in her 60s. So I'm like, what is young? I finally asked her what is young. And you know what she told me? 30 years old. So I was like, I was really glad that I clarified, because to me, I don't know, younger maybe.
But 30 used to be old.
Right.
But again,
until we passed 30.
I always like to mention that I grew up when I actually had to take a math class. We had to use punch cards and put together a program. So I'm that old and have seen all this amazing development exponentially, particularly in the last few years. In 2019, the Alliance for Science and Technology Research in America put a STEM report cards, innovation STEM report cards for every state in the country. And so there was some interesting information on there for states in the Southwest and again, the larger part of the United States. So if you have an opportunity, as I had this week, go to www.usinnovation.org and they have a link to the state STEM report cards for 2019. Again, a little dated, but I don't think that it's that far outdated. Right. I think a lot of the data is still relevant to these discussions and what you're considering, particularly if you're a young student looking to pursue a STEM career. So
we'll put a link for that in the show notes, right?
Yes.
But so what I wanted to touch on, and this is so interesting, and we could talk a long time about this, but one of the things that we have seen with the pandemic is, the growth of the nonprofit that you are the board president of. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about that and kind of ask you to share with our listeners, because I don't know that we've ever actually taken the time to explain. Oftentimes we'll talk about Be Greater Than Average and camps and programs. And of course, STEM Southwest podcast is part of Be Greater Than Average. But there's this other component, this nonprofit organization. And you want to share with us and our listeners, viewers, a little bit about that and what we're working on, because it kind of is important how it's impacted our lives in the last 6 months to a year.
Well, I mean, we were this very non-distinct nonprofit that was focused on STEM education. It came into existence in 2016 as a partner with Be Greater Than Average. Mm-hmm. And we were doing little things here and there, but I don't know if it was necessarily the pandemic that caused us to make this decision. But back in June of 2020, we had an ultimate decision. We need to either close up shop or go full speed forward on building this nonprofit to where we know that it should be going, and we know what it can achieve. So in August of 2020, we elected a new board of directors. Now, the funny thing, the week that we were going to elect the board of directors, I was ready to step down.
From your position on the board.
From my position. I wholeheartedly support STEM. I've been working with these students since 2005, so it was not a matter of not being interested in the mission and all that. But somehow I ended up extending my term for another 3 years in the board, and my fellow board members decided to elect me as the president.
Yeah.
And I told Shelly and others that if I'm going to accept this position, I am going to really, my focus is to build the infrastructure of this organization and get it moving forward on a healthy track. And so several of the things that we have done in less than a year's time is, number one, we hired an executive director for the first time in the nonprofit's history. And so we have a day-to-day person. So if you have any questions or concerns, that's who you talk to. We have several other things, but I think one of the more prominent is that we, for 2021, and expecting to do this for every year going forward, is setting out at least 3 priorities each year that the organization should focus on and build upon. And one of those priorities for 2021 is really focus on the STEM workforce pipeline, which is very relevant to the intent of our podcast, really talking about the STEM workforce, what opportunities are out there. And so there's a lot of effort going into that. And maybe Shelly, you can share some of the work that has been going into that priority for 2021.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think that this episode is a little bit about connecting the dots. If people go to our For Creating website, they can actually download the document that we have about the STEM workforce pipeline and how we see students and young people working their way through it and creating pathways from, introducing the youngest of the young kids and families and bringing them through their elementary, junior high, high school, college years, and then into the STEM workforce, whatever that looks like, right? And so I think that I do want to touch on the fact that it was not necessarily the pandemic that motivated us. I think it came back to the fact that our youngest graduated high school and we were making some family decisions about what to do. And up until that time, the nonprofit had really operated out of our family home. And so as we sit here today recording, we're actually recording in our new location. And that was part of the commitment and part of the fundraising that was done and has been done. And so we've increased the board involvement. We went back and we went out and kind of searched out board members and said, hey, if you want to do this, you need to be all in. And we've found that has been pretty amazing, right? So that's kind of how we've been spending our time. But go back to what was the question again? You asked me a question and told me to touch on
what
something.
Have you been doing? Because the great thing about having a day-to-day executive director is that is the person that can focus on the priorities that the organization has committed to for the current year. And so STEM workforce pipeline, what has been going on in that area?
Yeah. Well, certainly we have gotten involved legislatively and within our state, involved in workforce solutions and internships and pursuing relationships with organizations and professional organizations to create more opportunities for young people and make that connection for them. At the same time, we're kind of bridging that gap between all of those people that have lots of kids involved in STEM and all of those people that are looking for employees in the future of STEM, and kind of connecting the two and creating these relationships in that. So that's one thing that we've spent some time doing for sure.
Can you give another concrete example of something that has happened in the last couple of months?
Right. So one of the things, I don't know if you're looking for one specific example that you have in mind.
No, I have none in mind.
Okay. All right. So the example that comes to mind for me is that we've been working with APS, Albuquerque Public Schools, which is one of the largest public school districts in the nation. And we've been working with them on a 3D printing program. Along with that, we've had other partnerships. Sandia National Labs has stepped up and been a partner for that. And so we're creating this through a pilot program, using 3D printers to create real workforce skills that then organizations like Sandia are going to be able to hire on these students as interns. We've been out there working with other 3D printing companies or design companies that are looking for students with this kind of knowledge.
Wait,
And
students at college, right? That's what you mean, right?
well, some students in college,
Right,
but a bigger number of our students really were focused on our high school students.
I didn't know you actually could do this stuff in high school.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
we really believe of leveraging the power of youth, right? And getting them involved and passionate about this stuff before they have to make career decisions. Let's give them lots of different experiences so they can take that forward. And we see it time and time again. We offer it through everything from resume and career building workshops that we offer, as well as just our competitive robotics program. And another example of our partnership would be with Gallup McKinley Schools, where Sandia, Gallup Schools, and R4 Creating and Be Greater Than Average all work together to train up this group of 18 Navajo students to build their own 3D printers, learn how to use them. And now we continue to work with them to help them gain the confidence and find opportunities through mentoring. We offer a lot of mentoring. You know, you talked about your experience volunteering and helping students in our public speaking with marketing presentation and writing skills in the engineering notebook. We continue, those students then that we're pouring into, they take on leadership skills and pour into other students, building confidence. And it's just kind of this beautiful pathway from beginning knowledge, someone coming to us with knowing nothing, to growing that. And at the same time that we're working with students, we're also working with educators and parents. And that's really important to the work that we're doing to grow that STEM workforce pipeline.
And we've done a lot of this stuff in New Mexico, but we are not just focused on New Mexico. We are focused on the Southwest and ultimately the nation, you know, sharing this information. I know you've had, for instance, the camps, you've had online camps where students as far as Florida have participated as well.
Absolutely, yes. And you know, I think as part of, not just to toot my own horn, but Karina Omdahl, who's one of our longtime huge volunteers for our organization, big thanks goes out to her. But her and I were nominated for an award that was presented at a worldwide robotics competition this week through an organization in Texas, and we were nominated and won. And I think that shares a little bit about, like, we're not just trying to impact students here in New Mexico. We're starting here, but what we're doing here is growing and impacting the STEM workforce pipeline and young people and business owners across the region, particularly, but in such a way that it's being acknowledged on the global stage. So that's pretty exciting.
So that actually is a good segue. You talked about the global stage and having impact in the region. Something happened today, and maybe you'd like to share that.
Me? What about you? What happened today? Our friends at Virgin Galactic and one of our previous podcast guests,
David Mackay.
David, if you're watching or listening, we're so happy that you became an astronaut again today. I don't remember how many times he's flown into outer space, but early this morning, from near White Sands Missile Range, not too far from there, Spaceport America, where we've also had several interviews with folks from Spaceport America. Virgin Galactic launched and sent David, another pilot, and a few other folks and some experiments out into outer space.
You know, it's neat for me is that everyone talks about Elon Musk and SpaceX, and I have been watching that in recent weeks, and because of his other involvement with Dogecoin and Bitcoin and that, he's lost some fans along the way, but Elon's still a popular individual. But knowing what's going on here on the ground in New Mexico and what started out in California, and they moved their operations to Spaceport America, Virgin Galactic is moving forward quickly. And although there's been a little delay that they're expecting Sir Richard Branson to go up in 2023. And I expect if that does happen as scheduled, that the space industry in this state will grow exponentially.
Absolutely. I did read something. You said 2023. I think I read something this morning. They're saying 2022.
That was my mistake. I meant 2022.
Okay.
My
All right.
mistake, yeah.
There's different sources, and with COVID, things have been shut down and delayed. But hey, Sir Richard Branson, shout out to you. You need to come talk to us on STEM Southwest podcast, because before you head into outer space, right? What I want to say about our friend David and his mission this morning was that it was successful and that they landed safely. If you listen to our interview with him, and it was one of our early interviews, but if you listen to that interview, we talk with him about pretty heart-wrenching tragedy that happened in the beginning days of this whole process. And so I know that as he was preparing to leave Earth this morning, that had to have been top of his mind, of his past friends that have been lost because of malfunctions. And so we're so glad, we're so thankful that you're back on the ground, safe and sound, but also so excited, right? Like, if we don't think that there's a shortage of STEM workers now,
it's going to be
it is exponentially going to be an issue. So we have to, and that's why it's a crisis.
Right.
That's why several years ago, we were like, this is a crisis waiting to happen, or already happening. Our friend Renee Moya, we're going to interview her one time. You're going to meet her one day. But I just spoke with her this week, and she works for a placement agency that specializes in STEM, in the STEM workforce. And she just shared, like, she's never felt this busy in her entire professional career. The demand is real. And so that's an exciting thing. There is so much in the future coming that I think that it's really important for us to connect those dots. And some of that just starts at small little nonprofits like R4 Creating.
And it's kind of these things come to me every now and then, but as we're talking about the crisis and a need for people in STEM, that this past year or so, I think most of America, most of the world is sick of COVID. It's still a real thing going on in our lives and that, but having students that we are very close to had a lot of their students that are in STEM related education, had a lot of their education go online. So they didn't have the opportunity to do hands-on. I think that's the best way to learn. And so that was one of the value that R4 Creating provided. There was we took all the safety precautions, but students were able to do hands-on work. You just get dirty in this, and I think that's important.
Right, wherever they were at. They might have joined us by video or through Zoom, or they might have joined us in person through safe distancing and that sort of thing. And I'm really proud of the work that we've done over the past year. Not only during this pandemic, somehow we've worked with this group of people and, students, adults, community members, and we have written for grants. We've received some of the biggest grants. I mean, I've never received more money from grant writing than we have in the past 6 months. So it's really exciting. I feel like we're on this trajectory as well. And that's really exciting. There's a lot going on. There's also a lot going on in our personal life, which might explain just a little bit about some of the delays with the podcast. And I do want to say to our listeners, we really appreciate you tuning in regularly. If you're wondering what was happening, there are stories to tell, people. We don't have time today to get into it, but let's, any thoughts that you want to share? Any personal things that you feel like might be attributing to, besides the fact that we've been focusing a lot of energy on the nonprofit, moving all of our equipment to a new location, preparing a new location, everything from painting and floors and shelving, and
it's taken a life of its own on it.
Yes.
But it's been a good time to be involved with this organization, involved with STEM, working with students and all that. And I'm hoping as we get things settled here, we're going to be able to commit to more of these episodes that we've neglected to put out for you folks. And but we do appreciate you sticking with us, and we hope to do some amazing things in the next couple of months and bring in some interesting guests.
Well, one of the fun things in this busy time, and our podcast, we talk about introducing our listeners and viewers to STEM rock stars. We've been able to meet a lot of really special people. And because of that, we will have more to offer. It just might take us a little while here to start getting things back up to speed. Because the one thing that there's a lot going on with the nonprofit, but then personally, we also have a daughter getting married in 7 days. And that's exciting, but that has also taken a little bit of our bandwidth.
The only information I'll share on that wedding is that my daughter is marrying somebody she met through robotics.
Yes.
So it's a STEM marriage.
Yeah, it's not even just a STEM marriage. It's the first official where both kids getting married, both students getting married came up through our program. And so it's kind of a special time for all of us, and trying to manage how do you plan a wedding in midst COVID.
And there's a little nerdness going on because they're going to bring some robot type of stuff into the wedding. Yeah,
there might be something to do with BB-8, which is why he's missing from his little pedestal over here. I heard BB-8 might show up at the wedding, but I'm not going to say for sure. Let the cat out of the bag. Yeah. Anyway, so what's ahead is exciting. We are offering, like you said, it's so important for kids to get their hands on, to help them learn and understand. And so we're here doing that and providing that all summer long. I encourage viewers and listeners to think about how you can do that for your own kids, or how you can create that environment for maybe interns in your division, or maybe even other families and friends. Maybe you want to get involved. Maybe you want to be on a board of directors like R4 Creating, or in fact, R4 Creating. You know how to reach us, right? And that's important. We need to really invest, and we're calling on our community. We're so thankful for all of you and all of your support and the notes that we've gotten. I got the best note this week. I haven't even gotten to share it with you yet. But one of our viewers, one of our listeners, sent me a note and was sharing how they saw that we were doing robot battling bot leagues coming this summer.
When? Really? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you know that. Anyway, and he was just going on about how cool and awesome that is. And yeah, so we love to do nerdy, cool, and awesome things.
I think isn't the first official date June 10th? I mean, I believe it's June 10th. It is.
Our first official event is going to be with New Mexico Tech Council, Women in Technology. And that is going to come up this week. They have a private event scheduled, which is really exciting. And I'm looking forward to that. And thinking of our friends there, I just want to say shout out and thank you. I was privileged and honored to receive an award from Women in Technology this past week. And that's what this beautiful piece of Nambe produced silver is here next to me. But anyway, so that's kind of what's going on around here. And what else did we want to share with our viewers and listeners before signing off? This probably will be a little shorter than normal.
Yes,
we could go on longer, but
We've got a wedding still.
We've got a wedding. We got a lot to do. There is a lot to do.
But we're not going away.
No, we're not. We're not. We'll be back even stronger. And we encourage you all to stop in, send us a note, let us know that you're listening. Let us know what you're interested in. We are going to talk a little bit more about STEM careers as we go forward here in that workforce pipeline that you referred to, that the nonprofit really is focusing on, and how people can get involved to make a difference there. Because folks, you and I, we need to get involved, right? We are in crisis mode, and no one else, the government is not going to be able to fix this problem. We need people to step out.
They may cause more problems sometimes, but we won't go into that detail.
We won't get political here.
That's just in general. The whole thing is that if you are a young person or you have a young person at home and they may not be in our area of operation in the Albuquerque Rio Rancho area, that does not mean they cannot be involved. We are here for students across the Southwest and the nation. So as far as mentoring and opportunities, if you are interested in that, please reach out to us.
Absolutely. Or if you're an adult and you need to get connected, or you're looking for STEM employment, reach out, let us know, because we have so many connections. People are calling me all the time saying, hey, do you know somebody who fits this job description? And so we would love to hear from you. And I guess that's kind of our recommitment to you. Our recommitment to going forward is to create growth in that STEM workforce pipeline, but we're saying we can't do it alone. It's not just us, right? It's all of us.
Yeah.
So from STEM Southwest Podcast, we just want to thank you for being part of our tribe, for supporting us, for sharing us. So we are on a lot of social media platforms. We aren't on TikTok yet, but who knows? Maybe that'll be something we'll do. Maybe that'll be a goal for 2021. What do you think?
As long as I don't have to dance, I'm fine.
Come on, Bob. Let's dance. All right.
We just lost a few listeners.
We're going to have a dance party, but we don't want you to watch. And I guess we'll just sign off here and say another great episode is coming your way soon. We promise to bring in some more of our STEM rock star friends.
And thank you for joining us today.
Hey there, this is Shelly, and I am so glad that you have stopped by STEM Southwest. Can I ask a favor? If you've gotten some value out of our episodes, if you are just powered by nerd power and are excited about what we're doing, or if you're new to us and you've got just an interest, subscribe now and help us grow by doing that. Then take a moment and give us a review on iTunes or your favorite podcast player, because we could use your support and help. We are trying to raise up an army of STEM Southwest supporters. And then last, think about sharing our podcast with your friends, your families, or even complete STEM strangers, because, it's all about making the world a better place and having more STEM rock stars highlighted and connected. Stop by our website if you're looking for resources, and you're going to find a lot of things that's going to grow over time. So continue to stop on in and join us. Subscribe now and support STEMSW.com.
You've been listening to the STEM Southwest podcast. Nerd on, fellow STEM nerds.